All right, so I have this shop application here, which I'm currently working on, which is pretty simple, but like you can see here, there's something off. And this is intentional, right? So I misconfigured it, and I'm using Tailwind here for styling, as like you probably do on like 99.9% of your web page by now. And so what happens is like Tailwind is not properly configured. So the purging process probably removes CSS that is required here, or I didn't apply it. But I know that I did, right? So because if I go into the product grid, I can see I have here the gaps specified and everything, but still it being here collapsed and attached to each other. Now, the issue here is that this whole project or this whole shop application is in a monorepo setup. So this is an NPM workspace. You can see here I have these different workspace folders. It is basically just a modularized application where I have the React app up here, and I have everything kind of modularized into packages for order domains, for product domains, some shared stuff, etc. Now, what happens when I configure Tailwind though is that I generate these or create this glob pattern for my application, but clearly I also need to take into account all the dependencies of that application that live down here. Now you can see that I have here something commented out, and in fact, if I add this back in and I go to my dev server here, you can see it works. At least it looks no more attached to each other. Probably there's space for optimizing this layout still, but you can see how the classes now are being applied, which is because Tailwind now also includes all these sub packages. Now, the thing is, this is not really efficient because in this small repo, it's perfectly fine, but you might have hundreds and hundreds of projects in here, and they might not even all depend on each other. Because in this repo, I just have here AI shop, which is one application, but you might have multiple applications which might not depend on all of the projects that you have in here, but just on a subset of them. So it's not really efficient to just include all of them at once. So what we can do for that is basically generate these based on the dependencies that we have on the projects. So right now, again, if we look at the graph, that means if I am at the shop app, I need to include the product detail, but I also need to include here this file, which also needs to include the UI here. So it needs to go down to the very bottom basically, because we don't directly depend on the leaf nodes here, but it might go through a chain of other projects that might be dependent basically back on the application and in the end. So we need to account for all that. Now, taking that or doing that manually is obviously a huge burden. Like you're not going to do that, and it's going to break pretty quickly once someone changes dependencies or moves them around or adds some new ones and forgets to update this file. Now, a cool feature that Nx happens to have is so-called sync generator. And I can demo it directly based on an existing sync generator that is already here, which is here for these TypeScript project references, which is a similar problem, right? Because we want to have TypeScript project references set up and configured, but I'm not wanting to maintain this by myself. Every time I need to update something, this is gonna break for sure. It would be a nightmare. And so there's a sync generator running behind the scenes. I can demo that, for instance, by going to the app config, and I just remove here that dependency on this product detail page. So if I open up here the tsconfig again, now let me just reserve the application. And we'll see now the sync generator kicks in. It asks, hey, there's something out of sync. Do you want to sync? Yes. And you can see how the product detail here has disappeared. Again, going back and including this again, if I serve again, this sync generator kicks in again. And if you watch closely here, you will see the product detail reappears. So I basically don't have to worry about the TypeScript project reference setup that's taken care by the sync generator. And if you think about it, this is exactly the same problem, right? Like we want, based on the dependencies, generate these glob patterns. By the way, big shout out to Nicholas from our Nx Champions, which actually gave me the idea to use a sync generator for exactly this one here. So let's go and implement that. We have an already existing docs page. So if you go to extending Nx, which is all about customizing Nx basically and extending its core functionality, then we have a create a sync generator. And that basically has all the steps that you need to do. We could just follow one by one to actually go implement that in our code base. Now that's not fun, so I'm gonna ask Claude to help me out here a bit. So let me cancel this one here. Let me fire up Claude. And let me ask Claude something like, please create a Nx sync generator that implements the generation of Tailwind glob patterns in the Tailwind config. And so let me here tag that. It's fine. So right now in the config, I'm basically globbing all of my packages folders and all of the components that live in there, but that's clearly inefficient. So I want you to basically create a task sync generator that triggers whenever I serve my application or whenever I build my application. And it should basically update this glob pattern just based on the dependencies that my shop app has. You can use basically follow the instructions on this docs page in detail on how to set up such a sync generator in our workspace. I use the APIs of the Nx Devkit to figure out and compute the dependencies of my shop application on the fly. All right. Pretty generic description without any details as much, but I gave it here the document, so it should be able to figure it out. So let's see how it goes. This is probably wrong. It shouldn't register it in Nx.json, which is a global sync generator, but it should actually add it into the product JSON. We can fix that as we keep going. Update your current to-dos to not register the sync generator in Nx.json because it's not a global one, but rather create a task generator that's directly registered in the product JSON of the shop application. Okay, so it goes and adds the Nx plugin. That's perfect because that's required because it has these code scaffolding tools for creating a generator, such a sync generator. So it doesn't have to code it by hand, basically. So it creates that in the tools folder. That is fine. You could even just place it inside your packages, but sometimes people prefer to actually have it in a dedicated tools folder. So it's basically a little bit more distinct from the actual application features versus just infrastructure tooling. I'm going to proceed. I don't think this is correct in terms of the syntax, but it probably figures that out. Exactly, it's not found in the schema. Updates it. This looks good. So what it does here is basically generate here. It already has the plugin generated. The local plugin is basically nothing else like a package that Nx recognizes as an Nx plugin and that can have functionality such as code generation, which this is exactly what we're doing. And now it uses an auto generator to create such a sync generator. It's kind of like recursive. This looks good. So you can see it creates here the Tailwind glob pattern generator. Now this is the default one, so it needs to go and update it. Tries to update here the product JSON. Product JSON is something that Nx used a lot, but now we can actually just extend the package JSON. Let me actually correct this. Don't use a product JSON. You can directly add it into the package JSON inside an Nx root node there. Check the docs page again, which should have the detailed instructions about that. So here it goes and corrects the calling schema JSON, removing just the pre-generated properties because the sync generator doesn't really need any properties, so that's perfectly fine. So this is good, and that's the same thing basically with the schema DTS file as well. And I'm curious how it goes with implementing the actual generator logic, where it should use the according API from Nx Devkit, which allows you to basically programmatically get access to the product tree and the product graph, which again, exactly you can see here. So it goes and uses direct reference direct to the shop application, which is fine in this case. We could make it more generic, but I don't think it's necessary here. And then it goes and fetches or basically gets all the dependencies and then generates these glob patterns. So this looks good. Now you go and update the package JSON of our shop application. Let's see. So here we have an Nx node. So you can add basically Nx specific properties inside that Nx node. For instance, here you can see I added already the so-called Nx tag, which allows us to apply some rules on top of our application. And so here now it registered that sync generator, which is based on our plugin name, which is add AI shop Tailwind sync plugin. So if we go here into our tools folder, we can see there's a package JSON. This is the name of our plugin. And then this is the name of the generator, update Tailwind globs. So this looks good. Now it tries to basically verify whether the implementation works. Let's see, there's a spec file. Yeah, that's a good call, Claude. Let's just remove the tests. That's perfectly fine for this one here. All right, it tries to build the plugin, which is not strictly necessary. So this will happen out of the box. We can run it just to make sure syntax-wise we're good. And in fact, it looks fine. So it compiled. That gives us already some certainty that the implementation at least doesn't have any issues. Now it's testing the sync generator. So basically running surf should basically run the sync generator. In fact, you can see it does. Perfect. Tries Nx sync as well, which manually triggers it. But I think we're good almost. So I feel like, yeah, if you go to the Tailwind conf, you can already see that the glob patterns here come in. So based on the dependencies, which is the product detail and product list directly depend from the shop app, and then data access definitely is being referenced by one of these. These are also referenced by this, the utils obviously in the UI. So it looks actually pretty good from what I've seen before from the Nx product graph. Let me just catch up here. Where we are. And yeah, this looks good. Let me just try to surf the app now myself. Let me cancel here Claude. And so if we surf our shop app, we now have the application level, Tailwind setting. Oh, this one, and then this is the app level, the application serving. And it looks good, like the Tailwind classes are being respected. Let's make a test as well. Like if we now remove here one of these dependencies, let's go and remove these ones here, and I surf the app or build it, it should kick in, which it does. So it says like here, update Tailwind globs. Glob patterns are basically out of sync. Do you want to sync them? Yes, sync the changes and run the tasks. You can see it adds them back in, and this looks amazing. So basically, I don't now have to worry anymore about updating my glob patterns. They will just be automatically filled in whenever I add new dependencies in whatever part of the tree, which is also really nice, right? So it's not just if I add new projects directly to shop, but maybe tomorrow in my feature product detail, I add some new package or library further down there. That would also be included into the Tailwind glob patterns. Now, one could go and further optimize and just like detect whether that package actually uses Tailwind classes. Like I'll leave that to you. But let's first go in here and explore what exactly happened here. So it uses that create project graph async, grabs the main node. This one gives programmatic access to the product graph. So you get that basically in here, and now you can just traverse that and basically figure out what are the dependencies. It's like a tree traversal basically, where you then collect all the different projects, generate here the glob patterns. As you can see, it just basically joins whatever we have in here. This is the app one, sorry. And then it goes down here and basically connects with the data root, which is the source, the root folder of the given project that we're currently traversing, and then just attaches the same pattern there. So here you could modify or adjust the package, the pattern, and then just add them to the global pattern, filters out the Tailwind config there, and then just adds the pattern into that one. Perfect. So this is really nice. And I leave it to you to explore how such a plugin, an Nx plugin looks like. But this is basically a plugin that our Claude code here generated for us to actually host this new Tailwind generator. All right. I think this was amazing, right? So most of the implementation was straight done by Claude. But again, you see how important it is to kind of follow along as well and kind of course correct whenever we need to. Big shout out to Nicholas, one of our Nx champions, which gave me this original idea of using a sync generator to implement Tailwind config glob pattern matching, which now is super efficient because it really just creates them for whatever we depend on. But what I like most about these sync generators is these are automations. So I don't have to worry about whenever I restructure my workspace that I break some code base part, which I might not even notice because this is actually hard to figure out if you don't look at the actual UI. So definitely explore those. We ship a bunch of built-in sync generators, such as for TypeScript project references. But as you have seen, you can totally customize that to whatever use case you have. And if you come up with a cool one, definitely ping me. I'd be super interested, even maybe jumping on a live stream to figure that out. All right, one big favor on your end, like the video, subscribe to our channel. That's how you give me feedback. that I'm doing a great job. And yeah, I hope I see you in the next one. Take care.